You know that feeling when someone, clearly less intelligent than you, seems to grow richer and more powerful? You look at them and think, is he secretly intelligent, or is the world rigged in his favor? Machiavelli would have smiled at that question. He once wrote that fortune is a woman, and that she submits only to those who treat her with boldness. In other words, fortune doesn't reward the intelligent, it rewards the bold. The truth is, most of those who appear dumber than you may be, but they possess something more useful than intelligence, the audacity to act. While others are still perfecting their theories, it's not reason that builds empires. Welcome to Machiavelli's Code, where we decode power, psychology, and human nature, one dark truth at a time. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe, like, and share this video if you're ready to stop overthinking and start winning like Machiavelli. 1. The comfort trap of the intelligent. We live in a world that worships intellect as if it were the highest virtue, the way ancient Florence once worshipped its scholars and philosophers. From the moment we're born, we're taught the same story, that the smartest people win. That if you study hard, collect degrees, master theories, and outthink everyone else, life will eventually reward you. But Niccolo Machiavelli knew better. He watched brilliant minds lose to ordinary men who simply had the nerve to act. The tragedy of the intelligent is subtle but devastating. They confuse understanding with control. They believe that because they see the truth clearly, they can bend the world to their logic. But reality doesn't obey intellect. It bends only to movement. Clarity without action is paralysis dressed in confidence. You can have all the insight in the world, but if you never take the step, it means nothing. Knowledge alone builds no bridges, creates no wealth, wins no wars. The world doesn't reward those who merely know what to do. It rewards those who prove it through motion. Every act of courage, every risk, every moment you choose to move despite uncertainty, that's what life responds to. Fortune, as Machiavelli warned, doesn't fall in love with the cautious thinker. She surrenders to the man who dares to reach for her. So while the intelligent keep sharpening their minds, the bold keep shaping their destiny. And that's the cruel beauty of the world we live in. It doesn't honor ideas. It honors execution. 2. The paradox of overthinking. The smarter you are, the easier it becomes to imprison yourself inside your own mind. You dissect every possibility, analyze every outcome, and calculate every risk, until the clock runs out and life quietly passes you by. You call it strategy, but Machiavelli would have called it fear. He once warned that he who hesitates in danger invites his own destruction. And he was right. The longer you linger in thought, the more your doubts begin to multiply. What if I fail? What if I look foolish? What if I lose everything? You convince yourself you're being rational, but really you're building a cage made of hesitation. Intelligence is supposed to liberate you. Yet for many, it becomes the very thing that holds them hostage. You see too much, feel too deeply, think too far ahead, and in doing so, you lose the instinct to move. You forget that clarity means nothing if it doesn't lead to action. Meanwhile, the so-called foolish ones, the impulsive, the reckless, the brave, they move. They act before the mind has time to sabotage them. They stumble, they fail, they look foolish. But they move. And because they move, life bends to meet them halfway. They don't win because they're smarter. They win because they're present. While the intellectual is still debating the perfect move, the bold one has already made 3. While the thinker seeks certainty, the doer seeks momentum, and momentum is a force far stronger than logic. In the real world, Fortune doesn't care about your IQ. She cares about your nerve. She hides behind the door that only opens when you knock without knowing what's on the other side. And by the time the overthinker finds the courage to knock, the reckless one has already walked through. So yes, intelligence is a gift, but only when it's paired with courage. Otherwise, it becomes a beautiful prison, one where you spend your life planning the perfect escape but never actually leave. 3. The myth of merit. If intelligence truly ruled the world, universities would be filled with millionaires, and professors would live in mansions funded by their own wisdom. But that's not how reality works. The same professors who teach business often struggle to pay their bills, while the very students who once sat in their classrooms, the ones who couldn't sit still, who questioned the rules, who dropped out, go on to build empires. History repeats this pattern endlessly. Leonardo da Vinci, a man whose mind touched the heavens, died relying on the generosity of his patrons. His imagination could build flying machines, yet he couldn't build his own fortune. Meanwhile, Cosimo de' Medici, the man who funded him, died leaving behind a dynasty that controlled the very world Da Vinci tried to understand. One designed the art, the other owned the artist. Intelligence creates the masterpiece, but power owns the gallery. And that isn't injustice. It's nature, because intelligence thinks, while power acts. The intellectual seeks perfection before movement. The powerful move, then perfect along the way. The thinker wants to understand the system. The doer wants to use it. And the world always rewards the latter. You can spend a lifetime mastering theories about success, but unless you step into the arena, your brilliance remains invisible, like a light hidden under a bowl. Ideas don't make history. Decisions do. That's why the world bows not to the smartest, but to the boldest. Not to the dreamers, but to the executors. It's not that intellect has no value. It's that intellect without action becomes sterile, trapped in endless reflection. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He watched the clever fall to the courageous, the educated lose to the decisive. Because fortune, as he wrote, is a woman, and if you wish to master her, you must treat her boldly. The lesson is cruel, but clear. The world doesn't pay you for what you know. It pays you for what you dare to do. 4. The battlefield of wealth. Machiavelli never saw politics as a fair contest. He saw it as a battlefield ruled by timing, audacity, and adaptation. And if you look closely, today's world isn't much different. The marketplace, the workplace, even relationships, they all obey the same brutal law. The bold act, while the thinkers hesitate. And hesitation, no matter how intelligent, is just another form of surrender. Perfection, that seductive illusion of control, is the slowest kind of death. You keep polishing your plan, refining your approach, analyzing every detail, until time itself turns against you. The bold don't wait for certainty. They stumble forward, collide with reality, and learn through pain. Every mistake becomes a weapon, every failure a lesson carved into their memory. They may fall, but they always fall forward. The intelligent, however, often retreat into thought. They live in a world of simulations, theories, and what-ifs. They study maps of a land they never dare to walk on. And by the time they're ready to move, the landscape has already changed. Every second spent waiting for the perfect moment is a gift you hand to someone less intelligent but more daring. Because while you're asking, what's the best way to begin, they've already begun. And fortune, ruthless, unpredictable, alive, doesn't care who's smarter. She sides with motion. You'll never outthink the chaos of life. You can only meet it with movement. The truth is, the world belongs not to the ones who dream of flawless strategies, but to those who act on imperfect ones. The people who take the leap, not because they know they'll land safely, but because they trust they'll learn how to on the way down. That's why Machiavelli admired the doer over the thinker. The battlefield rewards courage, not contemplation. Because in the end, fortune doesn't follow those who wait. She follows those who move. 5. The psychology of paralysis. Here's the darker truth. Machiavelli understood long before the modern world tried to disguise it with politeness and logic. Intelligence is both a gift and a curse. It gives you the power to see further than others, but it also traps you in the illusion that you can control what you see. The smarter you are, the stronger that illusion becomes. You start to believe that if you analyze deeply enough, plan perfectly enough, and anticipate every variable, you can bend the world to your will. But control is a mirage, a cruel one. The more you try to grasp it, the faster it slips away, like water through clenched fists. Machiavelli wrote that men are ruined more by their hesitations than by their errors. He knew that mistakes don't destroy you. Stagnation does. Because hesitation kills momentum, and momentum is the rawest form of power. Once it's lost, it's almost impossible to rebuild. That's why the so-called dumb people often win. They're not actually dumb. They're unburdened. They don't waste their lives waiting for perfect timing or flawless execution. They act while others analyze. They fail, yes, but they fail forward. And by the time the intelligent have finished drawing up their perfect blueprint, the foolish have already built something imperfect that actually works. The irony is cruel, but simple. The world doesn't reward the ones who understand it best. It rewards the ones who move through it. The careful build theories, the courageous build empires, because life isn't a chessboard, it's a storm. And in a storm, the thinker hides, the fool panics, but the brave one sails. So remember this: control is an illusion, certainty is a lie, and the world, in all its chaos and brutality, will always belong to the ones who dare to move while others hesitate. 6. The two powers of fortune: execution and influence. Machiavelli believed that fortune bows to two unshakable forces: execution and influence. Execution is the courage to act before certainty exists. Influence is the power to make others believe in what doesn't yet exist. Together, they form the foundation of every empire ever built. Most intelligent people only master the first stage: thinking. They analyze, calculate, and plan every possible outcome. But very few master the second: moving hearts. Because moving minds requires logic, but moving people requires something deeper: emotion, presence, persuasion. The Medici understood this truth centuries before it was written. They didn't conquer Florence with swords. They conquered it with perception. They made allies feel powerful while quietly binding them with debt, gratitude, and loyalty. They didn't need to shout commands. They created the illusion that following them was everyone's best idea. Machiavelli captured this manipulation perfectly when he wrote, "Men are so simple and so obedient to present necessities that he who deceives will always find those who let themselves be deceived." The Medici didn't rule by fear alone. They ruled through narrative. They controlled the story, and the story controlled the people. Centuries later, nothing has changed. Only the weapons have evolved. Deception now has prettier names: branding, marketing, storytelling. Modern princes don't wear crowns or armor. They wear suits, stand on stages, hold microphones, and build audiences. Their battlefield is the internet. Their sword is influence. The richest men alive today aren't the most rational. They're the most magnetic. They don't just sell ideas. They sell belief. They make the world feel something: hope, excitement, belonging, even fear. And that emotion becomes their empire. That's what Machiavelli saw so clearly. Power isn't held by those who think the most, but by those who move others to believe. Because in the end, fortune doesn't follow truth. She follows influence. 7. Why smart people stay broke. It's not that they lack intelligence. Far from it. It's that their intelligence turns inward, like a blade cutting the wrong way. Instead of guiding them toward action, it feeds doubt, hesitation, and endless analysis. They overthink until their thoughts consume the very courage they were supposed to create. They don't move because they fear failure. They don't take risks because they fear ridicule. They call it prudence, caution, or strategy. But Machiavelli would have called it what it truly is: cowardice, disguised as virtue. He knew that men ruin themselves not through ignorance, but through hesitation. Every time you delay action under the illusion of being ready, you are quietly surrendering to fear. You tell yourself you're waiting for the right moment, but the right moment never comes. And while you wait, someone bolder, someone less qualified, someone with half your intelligence takes the opportunity that was meant for you. Fortune, as Machiavelli wrote, is a woman, and she falls for the bold. She rewards those who chase her, not those who study her from afar. The world doesn't bend to those who think the most, but to those who move the fastest. The market, like war, has no patience for hesitation. It rewards decisiveness, not perfection. Because perfection doesn't exist outside of theory. What exists, what matters, is movement. Every hesitation is a small death, slow, quiet, disguised as caution. And every act of courage, no matter how flawed, is a spark of life. So stop waiting for certainty. Stop polishing your plans until they lose their edge. Act. Adjust, advance. Because the world doesn't remember those who almost moved. It remembers those who did. 8. The 3 Machiavellian laws of wealth. Machiavelli's wisdom hasn't aged. It has simply changed clothes. The same principles that shaped kings and empires now shape leaders, creators, and builders. And if you truly understand these 3 laws, you'll stop watching others win and start creating your own fortune. Law 1. Act before you're ready. There is no perfect moment. There never was. The idea of readiness is an illusion the fearful use to delay their destiny. Fortune doesn't wait for those who plan perfectly. She rewards those who move. All courses of action carry risk, but the real prudence lies not in avoiding risk, but in choosing which risk is worth taking. Those who wait for certainty spend their lives preparing. Those who act with conviction, even in uncertainty, create history. Law 2. Treat failure as training. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's the tuition you pay to earn it. Every defeat is reconnaissance. Every setback is intelligence gathered for your next victory. The powerful are not those who never fall. They are those who refuse to stay fallen. They understand that pain refines, not defines. Each mistake, each embarrassment, each wrong turn, it all sharpens your judgment and hardens your will. Law 3. Influence over intellect. Ideas mean nothing until they are believed. The one who can make others feel his vision will always rule over the one who merely explains it. Because people are not moved by logic. They are moved by emotion, by story, by presence. You can win an argument and still lose influence. But if you command hearts, minds will follow. In modern language, those who control emotion control the world. Those who only speak reason remain unheard. This is the brutal beauty of power. It's not reserved for the smartest, but for the most felt. So remember, think deeply, but act boldly. Learn painfully, but rise relentlessly. And above all, don't just speak to minds. Speak to souls. That's how fortune finds you. Not through perfection, but through movement, resilience, and influence. 9. Turning thought into power. So, what's the real secret? The truth is simple, but it cuts deep. The difference between you and the so-called dumb or rich isn't intelligence or potential. It's execution. They act, then adjust. You analyze, then doubt. They risk, then recover. You plan, then hesitate. That's the only real gap. Movement. Machiavelli understood this long before our modern world dressed it up with fancy words like strategy and optimization. His wisdom wasn't about morality or even intellect. It was about motion. He saw that life, like power, bends to those who dare before they fully understand what they're doing. Motion before mastery. That's the unspoken law of fortune. Because movement creates opportunity, and opportunity refines skill. You learn not by waiting for the perfect moment, but by colliding with reality again and again until it finally yields to your persistence. The world doesn't reward the thinker who prepares forever. It rewards the doer who moves despite the noise in his head. Every second you hesitate, someone with less talent and less understanding claims the throne you were meant to sit on. You don't need to know everything. You don't need all the answers or the perfect plan or the reassurance that it will work. You just need momentum. Because once you start moving, the world starts responding. Machiavelli would tell you that fortune is not loyal to the wise. She's loyal to the bold. She falls for those who chase her relentlessly, not those who study her from afar. So stop waiting for permission. Stop trying to outthink uncertainty. Move, act, dare. Because if you don't, the world won't remember your potential. It will remember your silence. 10. The final lesson. Build the maze. Don't get lost in it. Imagine two men standing before a vast and endless maze. At its center lies everything they both desire. Wealth, power, freedom, the life they've always dreamed of. The first man is brilliant. His mind is sharp, analytical, disciplined. He studies every possible path, draws detailed maps, and calculates the risks. He waits for the perfect plan, the flawless strategy that guarantees success. The second man is ordinary, not stupid, just unburdened by overthinking. He doesn't know every answer, but he knows one thing: standing still won't get him anywhere. So, without hesitation, he steps into the maze. He fails. He hits dead ends. He makes mistakes. But each mistake teaches him something new. He retraces his steps, adjusts his path, and keeps moving forward. Slowly, painfully, but relentlessly. By the time the genius finishes his perfect map, the so-called average man has already reached the center. Tired, scarred, but victorious. He holds the prize that the thinker never touched. That is the Machiavellian truth of fortune. The maze does not reward understanding. It rewards movement. It doesn't care how much you know. how carefully you planned, or how intelligent you are. It only rewards those who have the courage to enter. The genius loses not because he lacks intelligence, but because he worships it. He mistakes clarity for control. He confuses preparation with progress. But the bold man, the one who acts before he fully understands, he wins because life bends to those who engage with it, not those who observe from the sidelines. So stop waiting for certainty. Stop trying to predict every turn. Fortune doesn't care about your potential or your plans. She doesn't fall for those who deserve her. She falls for those who dare to chase her. The world is a maze with no perfect map. You either stand outside, analyzing, or you step inside, evolving. And only those who move, those who risk confusion, failure, and pain, ever find the center. 11. The Machiavellian Creed. At the end of The Prince, Machiavelli left us not just a quote, but a challenge disguised as wisdom. It is better to act and repent than not to act and regret. Those words cut through centuries because they speak to a truth we keep running from. You don't need to be the smartest man in the room. You don't need to have every answer, every plan, every guarantee. What you need is the courage to move when everyone else freezes, to step forward when the crowd stands still. Because the world, like fortune herself, doesn't worship intelligence. It worships decisiveness. It bends to those who dare boldly enough to claim it, those who make choices, take risks, and face the consequences without fear. Every empire, every fortune, every legacy you admire was built by someone who acted before he was ready. And while others overthink, the bold write history. So the next time you see someone dumber getting rich or rising faster than you, don't curse their luck. Study their boldness. They're not defying logic. They're obeying an ancient law that most have forgotten. A law older than reason, older than fear. The law of action before understanding. Machiavelli exposed it centuries ago. Fortune is not fair. She doesn't belong to the wise or the deserving. She's unpredictable, emotional, and dangerously alive. She is, as he wrote, feminine, and she loves the man who acts, the one who moves without waiting, the one who risks humiliation for the chance of victory, the one who dares to chase her while others merely watch. In the end, the world doesn't remember the careful, it remembers the courageous. So act. Even if you fail, fail forward. Because regret fades slowly, but boldness echoes forever. This is Machiavelli's Code, where we decode the timeless strategies of power, human nature, and success, one dark truth at a time. If this opened your eyes or challenged how you think, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell, because in the next video, we'll uncover how to command respect in a world built to test your strength. Leave a comment below and tell us, do you act first, or think until it's too late?